Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for our nutrition clinic. You're in the right place if you are training for a 10K. And today we're going to be chatting through how the heck to fuel for a 10K and what should you be focusing on with your nutrition and your hydration. So, for those of you who haven't seen me around or if we haven't met yet, my name is Emily. I'm right here in Richmond. So I've probably passed a lot of you on the streets running around town. I have been in Richmond now. I think I'm going on 6 years. I'm from upstate New York and moved here about 6 years ago. And I'm a runner just like you. I have run anything from 10Ks to marathons, nothing beyond that yet. Someday I'd love to run an ultra marathon, but that is still on the to-do list. I've been running for about 12 years. I started running in college when I quit field hockey after my freshman year of college. I'm like, how the heck can I stay active? So I started running and just fell in love. And here we are, 12 years later, continuing to run. I'm a registered dietitian and a run and strength coach, and I founded my private coaching practice. It's the Dietitian Runner. Maybe you follow me on Instagram. I'd highly encourage you to. I give you lots and lots of daily tips and tricks on training and nutrition. So I'll give you my handle and ways to connect at the end. But I'm so glad you're here. And let's just kind of dive in here and get started with how the heck to fuel for your 10K. Now, there are these four major areas of nutrition that we're going to chat through. One of them being a huge piece of your nutrition is your daily nutrition. So that is how you're fueling your body on a daily basis outside of running, how you're setting up your meals. So we'll like really dive into that. Pre-run nutrition, so what to eat before runs, before workouts, if you need to hydrate and fuel during runs. So we'll get into the details of that. And then we'll talk about post-run nutrition, which is going to be very helpful in your recovery in between workouts and even after your race. So let's dive into daily nutrition first. Now, I encourage you to think of nutrition as a helpful tool to help your body achieve your health goals, your training goals, your running goals, your life goals. And nutrition is going to help you with energy. It's going to help you recover in between your workouts. It's going to help you be able to feel good and enjoy your life outside of training because for, I would say, many of us that are on this call, and probably most of us that are on this call, running is our hobby and it's something we enjoy and we love to do. But we have a whole darn life outside of running, and we want to have the proper energy and the fueling to support all those things that we do outside of our training. It's going to help you not hit the wall on longer runs and races and help avoid that porta potty on race day and during your runs. So runners' GI issues are really, really common. And nutrition and the right nutrition strategies is going to really help alleviate and even completely get rid of GI issues. So I encourage you to think of nutrition as a helpful tool. Food is fuel. Food is going to help you be the best version of you. It's not something that we need to restrict, and it's not something that we need to be afraid of. So the first thing, and you're going to repeat after me, whether it's on this call, if I hear your voice or in your head, but repeat after me, I am an athlete and I need to start fueling like one. So whether we take our running super seriously or when we're very competitive with it, or whether we just do it for fun, you're an athlete. Hate to break it to you. Actually, I'd love to break it to you. You're an athlete. Your body requires the proper fueling and nutrition to help you be the athlete that you want to be and to help you feel good. I know I keep saying that, but it's such a vital component in feeling good. And oh, I see something flashing on my screen, but I don't know what that was. Someone's name. Maybe they hearted it or whatever. But that's what I want you to believe. Start believing that you're an athlete, and it will make fueling your body like an athlete so much easier. So there are the lots of different components to your daily nutrition. The ones that we're going to really dive into today are your calorie intake, your macronutrient intake, and your hydration. Micronutrients are like your vitamins and minerals, and while those are super, super important, there are tons of vitamins and minerals, and it will probably take me hours and hours and maybe even days to cover. So today we're going to focus on calories, macronutrients, and hydration. Um, And calories are not bad. So let's move on to the next slide here. Get myself out of the way here. So a calorie, the definition of a calorie is a unit of energy. Calories are not bad. Calories are needed for health, for performance, for longevity. And I want you to be really aware of some signs that you're not getting enough calories because of all of the runners and the athletes that I've coached over the years. And even before I coached athletes, I was, in the hospital working with patients, inpatient. I was counseling people and patients on nutrition, outpatient, and underfueling is so common, whether you are running or not. So, underfueling is not great for your body. It has lots and lots of short and long-term consequences. So some signs of underfueling, which means you're not getting enough calories, is having low energy, stuck in that restrict binge cycle. So that could look like you kind of restrict your eating and your calories throughout the day, and then like that afternoon, evening hour hits, and you're so hungry, you're craving all the things. You get home from work, you open up your cupboards and you just like dive in and you go all out and you probably overeat. So that's like that restrict binge cycle. Hitting the wall during your runs, which can feel like, you just stop and it's really hard to continue on during your runs. Your endurance is not improving, your speed is not improving. Your Overall, you're going to have ups and downs, in your running journey. But overall, if you're not improving, nutrition could be the thing that's holding you back. If you're thinking about food all the time, if you're hungry all the time, that's a sign that you're under fueling. And if you don't feel like you're really well recovered in between your workouts, that's another sign of under fueling. And everyone has different calorie needs. So I know for myself, I know my calorie needs are a lot different than my husband's calorie needs, who is not a runner, but he's active in other ways. And our body weights are different and we just need different amount of calories. And that's okay. So try not to compare your plate to anyone else's. Go off your hunger and fullness cues. Hopefully, you're really well connected with those. And think like, or maybe even reframe like calories aren't bad, they are needed. And I need adequate calories to help me do all the things that I need to do. So, just a note on calories. And then there are three essential macronutrients that we're going to dive into today. So you have a good understanding of carbohydrates, protein, fat, and how they each play a role on your plate for your performance and for your health. And all of these are essential. So sometimes this surprises people, but whether you're exercising or not, whether you're in a training cycle or not, your body still needs carbohydrates, even if you're in the off season, even if you're not training. So carbohydrates, protein, and fat are essential, and we want to make sure we hit our daily needs every single day. So first, starting off with carbohydrates. Carbohydrates is your body's main source of energy to help you run, to help you recover, to support your muscle mass. So when we don't get enough carbohydrates, what our body can potentially do is start using our muscle for fuel, especially if we're low in calories too. Carbohydrates actually are needed for our brain so they can think and do its job. And fun fact, your brain uses at least 130 grams of carbs a day, which again, when I say this fact to people, it usually surprises people. And carbohydrates support your gut health, especially those higher fiber carbs. So carbohydrate sources are your grains like brown rice, pasta, bread, quinoa, farro, that sort of thing. Starchy veggies like corn, peas, potatoes, legumes like black beans, chickpeas, kidney beans, fruit, and dairy. So when it comes to setting up your meal away from exercise, so we're not talking about that meal that you might eat right before a run or whatever, like the meals that you eat outside of running, focus on those complex carbohydrates, and they're all listed above. If we can make your grains whole grains, for example, that could be a really great way to get in fiber that's really beneficial to our gut health and our bodies. So at meals and snacks away from exercise, focus on adding those complex carbs to your meals. They're very beneficial. A big one being energy, as we just covered. Now, as far as how many carbs to eat each day or what your goal should be, there's so many factors. So these are general recommendations. What I do in one-on-one nutrition coaching is I help people tailor their nutrition to their bodies, their goals, their histories, etc. So these are general sports guidelines here. Some people are numbers people, some people aren't. So I will cover this with you here, but I also have another way if you're like, okay, I'm not focusing on the numbers. The numbers are really triggering to me. I would encourage anyone who has like eating disorder histories or disordered eating not to get so bogged down in the numbers because our bodies aren't robots. It's not like we need this specific amount of carbohydrates every single day. Our bodies and our needs can change on a daily basis. So basically what I want to show you here, again, these are sports nutrition guidelines for carbohydrates. You'll see that on the left-hand column, on the left-hand side, you'll see daily carb requirements in grams of carbs per kilogram of body weight per day. So it's based on body weight. And then over here on the right side, you'll see exercise. And you'll notice that as you go down this column here, our exercise is getting longer and we're adding and increasing the intensity of our workouts. So you'll see on this side that as our exercise gets longer, as our workouts get more intense, our carbohydrate needs increase. And that is because we're using more carbohydrates for energy. We need more carbohydrates to recover when we do more exercise, higher intensity exercise. So we need to eat enough carbs so that our intake matches our exercise. And we're not way down here when our exercise is way down here because underfueling is not a fun place to be. I've been an underfueled runner in my past when I was just starting out running, didn't know too much about nutrition at the time, and it can lead to so many different health consequences. So this can kind of help you align your carbohydrate intake with your exercise. Again, if numbers isn't your thing, don't worry. I'm going to show you a plate, a visual plate that you can use as a guide instead. So this is all I want you to take away from this, really. Now, protein is our next macronutrient, and protein has so many different roles in the body, but the three main ones are muscle recovery and exercise recovery, muscle building, body composition, so it can support muscle building if that's your goal, and then hormone production. So, protein is actually used to make hormones in our body, and we want to make sure that our hormones are in healthy levels. And as far as the different types of protein, there are two main ones. Now, I like to think and visualize in your head. I wish I put a picture up here, but visualize in your head, let's say a house structure made of Legos. That whole house structure is your protein. Those little individual amino acids, those little individual Legos, those are amino acids. So protein is made up of these little essential or little amino acids. Excuse me, I keep messing up my words. So when it comes to the house, the protein, there are two different types of protein. We have complete proteins and incomplete proteins. Going back to the amino acids, we have two different types of amino acids. One is called essential, which you'll see here. Essential amino acids are essential to eat because our bodies cannot make them. However, non-essential amino acids our bodies can make. So when it comes to the protein, complete proteins give us all those essential amino acids that our bodies need to make muscle, to build muscle, to make hormones. And you'll see that I listed some animal sources of complete proteins and plant sources of complete proteins. So if you are a vegan, if you are a plant-based eater, it's okay. All you have to do is focus on incorporating some of these complete proteins and just eating a good variety, which I think is a really, really important rule of thumb when it comes to your nutrition. Because our foods have different vitamins and minerals. They have different macronutrients. So if we're eating a variety, we're more likely to get in what we need. You'll see incomplete proteins here. Those are like some plant proteins that I listed below, like nuts, seeds, legumes. They're missing some of those essential amino acids. So again, variety of protein-rich foods is key. I never like when my runners eat the same breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day for like weeks at end. Because sometimes some of the folks that I work with, they don't need that variety for like taste, and they just like to eat the same thing because it's easy, right? But nutritionally, it's not the best. So aiming for a variety of plant-based proteins, animal proteins, is key here. And when it comes to how much protein we need, this general sports nutrition recommendation is 1.4 to 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day for athletes. Again, if you're not a numbers person, don't worry. I'm going to show you an easy way to set up your plate in just a little bit. But I want to give you the information first so that way you understand the plate and why we set up certain things the way we set up certain things on the plate when we get to it. You'll also notice that this is a giant range here. So many things can affect our protein needs, our goals, our health history, um, how active we are, our exercise. I mean, there's so many things that can affect it. So it is quite a large range here. And then the third macronutrient is fat. Now, fat is needed and used by the body for energy, to make hormones, and to absorb fat soluble vitamins. So, your fat soluble vitamins is vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K. Just pulled that from my memory. But those are our fat soluble vitamins. So, a perk of having a fat source on our plate is that it will help your body to absorb those vitamins from your food. Fat is also something that we don't need to be scared of. Some people are afraid of eating fat because they think it's going to make them fat, but fat is actually needed, and certain types of fat, which we'll cover now, are really important for health and for recovery. So there are three different types of fats: unsaturated fat, saturated, and trans fat. If we can focus on unsaturated fat at our meals, that is a really healthy source of fat, and it can lower our cholesterol levels. It has been shown through the research to support brain and heart health. And there are certain fats, unsaturated fats, that are essential to eat because our bodies can't make them. So, really great unsaturated fat sources are plant fats: olive oil, avocado, nuts, seeds, fatty fish like tuna, salmon, herring, sardines are a few examples here. So, I think on the next slide here, I'm going to jump to the next slide. We're going to cover a particularly important fat called omega-3s, and I'm sure you've heard of them. I feel like I see info about omega-3s everywhere, but I want you to understand like what they are, how to get them in, and what they can do for your body. So, omega-3s are essential, meaning that your body can't make them, so they're essential to eat. And we actually have three different omega-3s that we can get from food. We have ALA, which is found mostly in like your plant fats. I listed some here. We have something called EPA, which is an omega-3, and DHA. Now, unlike ALA, we get EPA from fatty fish and shellfish. And remember that all three are essential. So if we can have a good variety of some of these plant fats here and then some fatty fish, that would be awesome because then we can meet all of our omega-3 needs. And why omega-3s are super important is I have the little checklist here. It can reduce inflammation in the body, and it can reduce DOMS, or delayed onset muscle soreness. And that is, I'll describe it as this. That is, let's say yesterday, you did a strength training session, which is awesome because all runners should be strength training. So you did a strength training session and you feel pretty good afterwards. Next day, you're like, I'm a little sore. But then Wednesday, like it hits you and you're really sore. That's DOMS. And then also omega-3s, like I said, support brain and heart health. I would say salmon and tuna are probably the most popular out of the list of fatty fish that provide EPA and DHA. And the American Heart Association recommends to eat at least 2 servings or 3 ounces of fatty fish each week. So if you look at the palm of your hand, the size of everyone's palms are a little bit different, but nothing is perfect, not even in nutrition. If you look at the size of your palm here, that's about 3 ounces, give or take, right? So aiming for two of those servings each week can be an important first step in getting those omega-3s in. So, where can I put myself? Here we go. So, what I want to cover now is helping you tie it all together. And this is my runner's plate framework that I honestly, as a runner, I use this myself to help me fuel my body and align my nutrition with my exercise at the time. And I use it as a framework to teach others how to eat too, especially for those who aren't numbers focused, who has eating disordered eating histories, and the numbers are just really triggering, or even for busy people who, don't want to track their nutrition and don't really have time for that. So this is a good visual framework to help you set up your meal to align with your training. And what I would encourage you to do, and I want to say this first before we dive into the plates, what I encourage you to do is look at like 1 week at a time and look at what your daily exercise is, and then choose the plate that most aligns with that. You might find that you can use a mixture of these plates, and we'll just chat about examples here. For some reason, this is cut off a little bit. I will send Mara the slides, and then I'll make sure that this piece isn't cut off here, but you should have the slides and this to refer back to after we do this live here. So you'll see that there are three runners plates, three different types of runners plates. So looking at, let's just focus on this easy training plate over here. You'll notice that there are four components to this plate. We have our grain and starch section, we have our protein section, we have fat, a source of fat, and we have color, which is your fruits and your veggies. So in this case, we have for our grain and starch, our potato, protein, and it counts as fat, our salmon. We have our salad here, which is our color. And then on our color, these are walnuts. This is also some avocado. And we're getting some fat from our salmon here. Maybe even some fat from our dressing here that we add onto our salad. Because who eats salad with no dressing, right? So you'll notice that these four components remain consistent across all of the plates. But the size of the parts change as you go across the plates. So this easy training plate here, this is a good plate to follow when you're not in a training cycle and maybe you're not exercising at all, or you're doing like 20 to 30 minutes of easy effort exercise. Here we can really fill half of our plate with those fruits and veggies, a quarter of our plate with protein, and a quarter of our plate with grains and starches. And then we add our source of fat here. Now, when we jump from this easy training plate to the moderate training plate, what we're doing is we're increasing our exercise duration. So we're going from not exercising or 20 to 30 minutes of real easy effort exercise, let's say like a really easy jog, or 20 minutes of a very light cycle. Then we're going to hop to 30 to 60 minutes of easy effort exercise here. And this plate is a good guide to follow when you're in a training cycle and doing 30 to 60 minutes. I will also say it's appropriate to use when you're not in a training cycle, but you're still exercising 30 to 60 minutes of overall easy, most of your exercise is easy effort. So what you'll see that we need to do here is we need to increase the grain and starch section from a quarter of the plate to now a third of the plate. So we're choosing a larger sweet potato. Our protein can remain the same, about a quarter of the plate. And then just to make room for the extra grains and starches, what we're doing is we're cutting a little bit back on the fruits and vegetables here. We still have our source of fat, but really the biggest change is that we're adding more carbohydrates or grains and starches to our plate because we're doing more exercise. So our body needs some more carbohydrates for energy and for recovery. Now, let's say we're jumping from this moderate training plate to this hard training plate. What we're doing is we're increasing our exercise even more. And maybe we're even adding some speed workout or some speed workouts in there. So the hard training plate is appropriate for when you're training for a race. It's appropriate for over an hour of easy effort exercise. And if you have, let's say, a 45-minute run, you have a warm up, you have some cool down miles or minutes in there, and then you have some speed built into the middle of that run, This plate could be a really great way to prepare for that run, that harder run. Your body's going to be using more energy. You need more carbs to fuel that run, and it's going to help you recover afterwards as well. So, what we're doing again is we're making even more room for our grains and starches, and we're really filling half of our plate with those grains and starches, those carbohydrate rich foods. So, we're keeping that bigger sweet potato, but we're adding some brown rice with it. And again, to make room for the extra grains and starches, we're cutting back on color a little bit. We don't need to completely get rid of color. We want fruits and vegetables there, antioxidant rich, fiber rich, really beneficial for our health, lots of vitamins and minerals. But for most people, it comes down to like a volume standpoint, and it's really hard for them to get in half a plate of grains and starches, half a plate of color, and a quarter of protein. So it could be too much food volume for that meal. Hey, if you can do it, go for it. But for most people, it's too much volume, so you can cut back the color. We still have our sources of fat here that hasn't changed. Protein stays relatively consistent throughout the plates. So the biggest change here is carbohydrates. So when I showed you that chart of aim for this amount of or aim for this amount of carbohydrates a day when you're doing this exercise, this could be a good way to help you increase your carbohydrate intake without worrying about the numbers. So it is a good visual. And then in addition to this, pay attention to your hunger cues, pay attention to your fullness cues. That's a really, really big piece of this as well. So I'm going to give you an example of a scenario and how to use these plates. So let's say during the week, you have about, let's say, 45 minutes of easy effort exercise. So what you would do during the week is you would follow this moderate training plate, and that's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So we want to make sure that we're using this moderate training plate to set up all of our meals every day during that week. But then let's say on the weekends, you're doing 60 minutes of exercise and you're adding speed work into that run. And I think I said Saturdays, but let's go with that is going to be scheduled for Saturdays. What you're going to do on Friday to prepare for that longer, harder exercise session is you're going to actually, for your breakfast, lunch, and dinner on Friday, you're going to eat this hard training plate. And then Saturday, you're going to, we'll talk about this next, but you're going to fuel before your run, go out and do your run. And then after your run for your remaining meals that day, you're going to be following this hard training plate because you need those extra carbohydrates to help you replenish your glycogen stores and to help with muscle recovery. So that is a scenario here. And I will say that if you're in a training for a race, you probably don't want to go back, even if you're 10K training, you probably don't want to go back and eat this moderate or this easy training plate even on rest days, because the whole purpose of a rest day is to rest, let your body recover, let your body replenish, and this easy training plate is not going to be enough to help your body do so. So I would not really focus on this easy training plate much at all when you're training for a race. Let me know at the end. I'm going to take questions at the end. So let me know if you have any questions and need help figuring out what plate is appropriate for you. And then the last piece of daily nutrition that we're going to cover is your hydration. So hydration is really important, especially for your performance. It's important for your muscles. Like your muscles are 75% water. So hydration is important for your muscles, the health of your muscles, the functioning of your muscles. Hydration is great for so many things, and it's really great for performance. So you want to make sure that you're going into all of your workouts well hydrated, because as little as 2% dehydration can start to negatively impact performance. So how do you figure out how much fluid to aim for a day? What you're going to do, very general recommendation, is take your weight in pounds, cut it in half, and that's how many ounces to aim for every day. So here's an example of a 160 pound runner, cut it, divided by 2, cut that in half, and it's 80 ounces a day. That doesn't include hydration before, during, and after running, which we'll dive into next. So we need to add to that number. And I will say that all fluids count. Seltzer, tea, Coffee. No, I don't want you to be drinking coffee all day long. Like getting in some other fluids is important too. But you're a cup, hopefully 1 or 2 cups of coffee, you can count that towards your daily fluid intake. Juice counts, iced tea, really any fluids count. Soups, like broth, that sort of thing, all counts. Okay, so now I hope you have a good understanding of your daily nutrition, why it's important to focus on carbohydrates, fat, protein, the types that you want to focus on, how to set up your plate so that it aligns with your exercise, so that you feel good and can accomplish your goals, and your daily hydration, right? Now we're going to dive into nutrient timing, which is basically a fancy word for fueling before, during, and after runs and workouts. And the whole purpose of this and why we want to do this is to enhance your performance and your recovery. So let's dive into pre-run nutrition first. Please fuel all of your workouts. I don't love fasted workouts, especially for women. It's not the best for our hormones. So fuel all of your workouts, and I swear you're going to feel better if you're not fueling your workouts to start. A lot of times when I work with runners, like one of the lowest hanging fruits, I should say, that we might tackle is fueling before runs. It can be as simple as adding some easy digestible carbs before your run. It's going to make your run feel so much better. You're going to feel so much better throughout your day after your run if you work out in the morning. So let's fuel all of our runs. What to eat really depends on how long your run is and how long you have to digest. So for shorter workouts that are less than an hour, when you have less than an hour to digest, and I'm looking at all of you morning exercisers that are waking up and like getting dressed and getting your workout done in the morning. I get it. I like to work out in the morning too. And sleep is important, of course, to prioritize. A lot of people don't want to wake up hours before they have to eat and then digest for their workout, right? But you don't necessarily have to. If workouts are less than an hour, what I encourage you to focus on is eating a smaller amount of low fiber carbohydrates. Why I recommend low fiber carbohydrates, like the foods you see in this picture here, is that your body can break these carbohydrates down, convert it to energy very quickly that your body can then use on your run. So you're less likely to start your run with a full stomach because we all know how much that can ruin a run. Low fiber doesn't have a high fiber content. We also don't want to be eating lots of fat and lots of protein. Like we don't want to be eating a 20-gram protein bar when we have less than an hour to digest because that's going to sit in your belly like a rock and not feel great. So the closer we get to exercise, like within the hour of exercise, we don't want a lot of fiber, fat, and protein. We want those lower fiber, easily digestible carbohydrates. So grab a banana, grab some graham crackers, grab a piece of toast, grab a waffle, grab some applesauce or a fruit pouch, grab some liquids that provide some carbohydrates, a little bit of juice, a little bit of sports drinks, all of those count. And along with that, like if we're not drinking something, we want to hydrate with like 1 to 2 cups of fluid. Easy peasy. You don't need to overdo it. You don't need to be excessive with it. Take some sips of fluid and then be on your merry way. Now you're probably wondering, what do I do for runs that are longer than that or for speed workouts? And here are some guidelines for that. When you do longer workouts, over an hour, when you add speed intervals into your workouts, you need to eat more to sustain you through that workout. I will never forget, and now and then when I take time off of doing speed workouts and then do a speed workout, I have to like remind myself, okay, this is a speed workout. It's not easy effort. You need to fuel with more than a banana or whatever. So sometimes it takes retraining my brain a little bit and lots of reminders to myself. Sometimes I will eat that banana and then I'll go on do a track workout and then I'm like dragging towards the end of it. I'm hungry during it, which is a red flag that we need to eat more or even eat more the night before as well. So we need to eat more to sustain us so that we're not hungry, that we can finish our workouts and finish them strong. If we're focused on paces and nailing certain paces, then fueling is going to help you do that. So the banana is probably not going to cut it. You want to choose a carb-rich breakfast or snack, call it what you want, and some protein if you have time to digest it at your breakfast before longer, higher intensity workouts. A minimum of what you want to aim for is 1 gram of carb per kilogram of body weight at that breakfast. So, like an 170-pound runner, we want to convert that to kilograms. So, divided by 2.2 is 77 kilograms. And that's what we want to aim for, 77 grams of carbs. And here's an example of what that can look like. Um, a waffle here, it's a Kodiak cake waffle, which has some protein in it, as you can see here. A cup of Gatorade, some syrup on that waffle. Excuse me, one sec. I'm getting over being sick and I'm not quite recovered yet. And then a small banana. And when you eat more, you need to give yourself more time to digest. So I would start with 1 to 2 hours and then see what works for you. A lot of the nutrition around exercise is trial and sometimes error. Like figure out what foods and combinations of foods work really well for you, what feels good, what gives you energy during your run, what sustains you throughout your run, and then the timing of that because you don't want to start a run with a full stomach. You want to be pretty well digested before you start your run. Now, this is something to think about as you gear up for race day. During your training is a really great time to start playing around with pre-run nutrition, playing around with combinations of foods, different types of foods, and finding what works really well for you. And then that can turn into your breakfast before race day. So if you're fueling longer runs on the weekends and you found a breakfast that works well, timing even for digestion that works really well, you can practice and do that same thing on race day. I would avoid trying new things on race day. Avoid playing around with the timing. Like, you don't want any of that to impact how you feel during your race. Next, we move to during run nutrition. Now, fueling during your runs, taking in fluids and electrolytes during runs is beneficial for races and runs that are over an hour or when you'll be racing at high intensity. So, for some of you who are running a 10K at easy effort for fun, not sure if you'd need a whole lot of fuel and hydration during that, but we'll kind of dive into how to figure that out. If you're racing and pushing it really hard, I would definitely recommend to add a little bit of fuel in there and add some hydration in there as well. And we'll talk about the details of that for sure. As I said, there are 3 parts to during run nutrition that we want to incorporate in our plans: carbohydrates, fluids, and sodium. And if you find that you fall into that category of, okay, it would be beneficial to fuel and hydrate during my 10K, you don't want to fuel and hydrate during your 10K for the first time on race day. You want to get used to fueling and hydrating during your running, during your training. Nothing new on race day. That is like a big rule of thumb that I encourage you to follow. Now, during the run, we want to fuel with carbohydrates. Low fiber foods, and some of them are listed here. I think the animation that I added to this presentation is cutting off my pictures. So excuse me there. This says dates, this says honey. I'm sure you can figure that out. But here are some lower fiber foods you could try during running. And then you have our sports products. You have a gel, you have a carb-rich sports powder that you add to fluids here. So it has carbs in it, it has sodium in it, which is awesome. Counts as fuel because it has carbs in it. Chews. Also, something that I've tried on a run recently, a long run that I really liked, are Welch's fruit snacks. So I really enjoyed that, and it's something that I won't yet incorporate. I'm running the River City half on Saturday. I think it's Saturday. I should probably know that. Pretty sure it's Saturday. And I just don't feel like I had the time to practice enough with fruit snacks. So I'll be using gels, but that's an option for you, is using fruit snacks to fuel during running. So here are sports guidelines for fueling during running. When we look at this chart here, this shows exercise duration, so how long you'll be running for, and this shows how many carbs to aim for per hour. Now, when we're running less than an hour, let's say you're doing like an easy effort run, fuel is not necessary during those types of runs. But and my answer to a lot of nutrition questions is, well, it depends. And that's typically the answer here. But if you're racing and adding speed work into your hour run or less than an hour run, it could be beneficial to add some carbohydrates in there. Now, if you're running, your training runs, I know everyone's schedules might look a little bit different, but if you're running between 1 and 2.5 hours, for long runs, if you anticipate that your race is going to take you between this time, fueling with 30 to 60 grams of carbs per hour can be really helpful. So, like I just put a little tidbit here, like for my 10Ks, and this is racing 10Ks, like it takes me anywhere between, depending on the shape I'm in, I guess, and how my training goes, anywhere from like 50 to 55 minutes. And that is less than an hour, but I push hard. When I'm running the Monument 10K, like I give it all I got, usually. Unless like I'm sick or something, went wrong or whatever. But even though this is less than an hour, I'm pushing hard and my body's energy demands are high. So I take a gel during my 10Ks. I also have a handheld because I will talk about this in a sec, but I'm a heavy sweater and a salty sweater, which means that I lose a lot of sodium through my sweat, and it feels better for me to take in fluids and electrolytes during running. So it's really all about finding what works the best for you and what is going to be most supportive of your body during the race and your performance. Now, as you can see here, this gel, this is a Crank Sports e-gel. It's my current favorite gel. And this gel here provides 37 grams of carbs. So I know that if I do one of these gels an hour, I'm falling within this range here, which is great. So that's just an example there. And then as far as taking in fluids and electrolytes, specifically sodium during running, here are sports nutrition guidelines here. And again, this is our duration of running here. Generally, less than an hour, when we're out there running for less than an hour, taking in fluids isn't necessary. But like my example, know your body and do what feels best for you, especially if you're a heavy sweater, especially if you find a lot of salt crystals on your skin. If you're also going to be really pushing it hard on race day, it could be beneficial to have some fluids. But again, find out what's going to work the best for you, and you want to figure all this out during your training. Also know too that your fluid and electrolyte needs can change in the summertime versus the winter time. So if it happens to be a hot race day, maybe, and especially if you know you're a heavy sweater, you lose quite a bit of sodium, it could be helpful to add some fluids during your run. Now, if you're running over an hour, here are our very general sports nutrition guidelines. It's 14 to 27 ounces an hour. So whether that's a handheld, a vest, a running belt, figuring out what would be the best way and most practical way for you to either carry fluids, or if you want to stop and take some cups on course, that's great too. But again, these are general guidelines. Figure out what would be the best route for you to go in with fluids, electrolytes, and carbs during your training runs and during your race. I did put a note here that I haven't commented on. Your fluid and hydration needs is based on your individual sweat rate. So every person has different sweat rates and has a different sweat electrolyte composition. So some people are really light sweaters and they barely sweat at all. Like one of my good running friends, she barely sweats at all. And here I am, like, it looks like I just got out of a pool or a shower. So I'm a heavy sweater. She's a light sweater. Some people lose a little bit of sodium through their sweat. Other people lose a lot of sodium through their sweat. So everyone's different as far as sodium and electrolytes go as well. So just something to be aware of. And then here are our sodium recommendations. Sodium is really important, especially if you're a heavy sweater, especially if you're a salty sweater and you tend to lose a lot of sodium, because there is a dangerous condition called exercise associated hyponatremia, which is when we are losing a lot of salt and fluid, yet we're only drinking plain water and we can dilute our sodium level. And I would say that like anyone can be at risk, but I would say people who are running long periods of time, some half marathoners, ultras and beyonds, like I would say that they're at higher risk for this, but just something to know and to be on the lookout for. So, like headaches, nausea, vomiting, coma, seizure, death, like those are some of the complications of exercise associated hyponatremia to be aware of. And again, when we're running less than an hour, taking in sodium is not necessary, but again, know your body. When we're running over an hour, it can be helpful to add in sodium during our runs. And here are some guidelines here. You can take in sodium through electrolyte rich gels and sports products, sodium rich sports drinks, salt tabs, salt chews. So, Salt Stick is a very, very popular brand and company that offers salt capsules and chews. So, capsules you swallow, chews you can chew. So how do you know? I keep saying salty sweater, right? And I did mention the gritty skin, but some other signs, like how do you know if you're a salty sweater? Here are some other signs. So again, if you have salt crystals on your skin, I always feel them after a long run, especially after like a long hot run, like in our wonderful hot temperatures here in Virginia in the summertime. I always get salt crystals on my face, sometimes even behind my ear, on my arms and legs. I usually feel them. You might not see them too. If they dry, they might be white like this guy here, or you might just feel them, like your skin might feel gritty. If you wear a hat and it's not white, if it's like a darker colored hat, sometimes you can see if you wear that during running, you can see white salt stains on the inside brim of that hat. This is a kind of an excessive picture here, but if you see any white stains on your clothes, on like the neck of your shirt, that is all salt loss as well. So those are some signs that you're a salty sweater, and it may be a good idea to take in some sodium during your runs. I find just a little like another thing about during run nutrition is I find that it's highly individualized per runner. The products we use, the frequency of fueling and hydration and electrolytes, how much everyone needs is so different. Like I've never created the same running nutrition plan for two runners because everyone's preferences are even different in the texture of gels and products and food. Some people don't mind chewing during running. Some people hate chewing during running and would rather like suck down a gel and then like move on and not have to like chew or think about like, okay, I gotta eat this whole package or whatever. So during run nutrition is super highly individualized. Finding what works best for you is key. And then the last piece is post-run nutrition. The goal here is to give your body food and nutrients to support your recovery. If you get home from a run, you cool down, you shower, you get ready for your day. Let's say you have to like hop in the car, drop your kid off at practice or go to a game, and like all these hours go by and you haven't ate a thing after your run, your body doesn't have the essential calories, nutrients that it needs to recover. And whether we feel it or not, we're going to have some degree of recovery needs after a run. So, delaying our nutrition, waiting hours to eat after we finish a workout is not going to be beneficial to your recovery at all. So if you feel like you're not recovering great in between workouts, yes, it can be an underfueling. Underfueling can be contributing to that. But I would also make sure you're fueling before your runs and you're fueling after your runs and not waiting hours to eat after your run. What you want to aim for after your run is that runner's plate that I showed you and choosing that plate that aligns with your exercise. Or what you can do, and this is the direction that I go in all the time, is I prefer to have a snack, cool down, do what I gotta do, shower, and then when I'm like ready and clean after a shower, then I can like get into the kitchen and make a meal or put a meal together with some pantry, fridge, freezer essentials that I have. If you were to eat the snack first, we want some carb at that snack, protein. You want to drink some fluids, maybe electrolytes if you lost a lot of sweat and fluids during that workout. And this is also these guidelines also apply to your recovery after your race as well. Can't remember if I have another slide or not. Oh, here we go. So there are three key parts to recovery nutrition. One is carbohydrates, which is going to help support muscle recovery and replenish your glycogen stores. We have glycogen stores in our liver and in our muscles. And when we're doing long workouts, hard workouts, high intensity workouts, we're depleting or we're using our glycogen stores, and they can be depleted after a workout. So having carbs after at that pre-run snack, at that pre-run meal is really important. And then protein helps with muscle and tissue recovery and repair. Remember when we talked about those amino acids or those little Lego pieces of the big protein structure or the Lego structure, right? There's an amino acid called leucine, and the research has shown that it's an on switch to muscle synthesis and really important for that repair building process. So I did list some good protein sources that are animal based, plant based. So whatever sounds good to you. You can actually be intentional about adding some leucine rich foods into your recovery snack or meal, and then hydrating well. And know that your recovery, especially after a longer workout or a harder workout, it doesn't just stop, or your recovery nutrition doesn't just stop after this first meal or snack. It's ongoing throughout the rest of the day, depending on your recovery needs. So, nutrition is something that you want to be focusing on, as you know, throughout your daily life and before, during, and after workouts. And then hydrate well after running, like I said. Again, if you're a heavy, salty sweater, you could benefit from an electrolyte drink potentially or some electrolyte rich foods. So, a lot of times when we think of electrolytes, we think of supplements, right? Like packets or scoops of electrolytes or a bottle of Gatorade, But we can also get electrolytes through food, and I listed some foods here. These are the electrolytes that we lose the most of or I should say, these are the electrolytes we lose in our sweat. Sodium and chloride, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. As I said, we tend to lose them, or maybe I didn't say this, but I'm saying it now. We tend to lose the most sodium through our sweat out of all of these, and sodium can impact performance and things of that nature. So, definitely making sure we're replacing that, and then some of the electrolytes too. We lose like a smaller amount of magnesium and calcium, but still important for performance and health reasons. Okay, before I take questions, I do want to say that if you want to email me over questions, you can. Please feel free to stick around and ask questions now. I'd be happy to answer questions that you have. But if email is more your thing, like here's my email, shoot me over some questions. I'm on Instagram pretty much every day. I have a post about nutrition and training, so please follow me over there. And then if you want to check out my website, I have a blog. I have information about coaching and programs. So please feel free to check out those things. And I will take questions. I don't know if Mara needs to do anything for that first.
No, everyone, you can feel free to come off
Oh,
mute if you have any questions.
if you want to ask them out loud, you can. If you want to type them into the chat, you can. Whatever you got to do to ask the questions that are on your mind. I don't bite, I swear. Do we still have people on here? Yeah, we have 13 people. Any questions on daily nutrition? Um, Choosing that plate that most aligns with your exercise and activity? questions on before run nutrition, during, after, hydration. Any questions on anything that we haven't covered today? Feel free to shout. Yay, we got something in the chat. Oh, what's the size plate? Oh my gosh. I will say that probably every single person asked me that question. The size of the plate, I don't know, like a typical plate. One thing that I want you to remember is that there's no such thing as perfect in nutrition. We all have different size plates, bowls, etc., right? So don't drive yourself crazy with using the size, like the perfect sized plate, right? Like use just your regular plates that you have in your house. Set up your plate so that your plate aligns with your exercise and use your fullness cues to guide how much of that plate you should eat. You don't want to finish the plate and then feel like super sick and throw up after, right? So just like use a standard plate. So we should eat the same three meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Do you mean we should eat the same runner's plate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? I'm assuming that's what you mean. Yes. Okay. Yes. The answer is yes. So, like I said, if you find that you're doing about 30 to 60 minutes of easy effort exercise, you should be eating that moderate training plate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yes, you're right. Does that answer your question? Also, don't forget too that you can use a blend of plates. Like if you have one speed workout a week, you can definitely use the hard training plate if you want to then prepare your body for that speed workout. And then the rest of the days, if it's 30 to 60 minutes of easy effort exercise, you can use that moderate training plate. So I hope everyone, if like I said, if you have any questions and you want to send me an email, please do. Thanks for joining me today live here. If anyone's listening to the recording here, thanks for listening to the recording. I'm here if you need anything. And I wish you all luck as you train for your 10K and you run your race.
All right,
You're
everyone.
welcome.